Dr. Robert Epstein, how are you, sir?
Very good. Thank you.
America, this is probably one of the most important shows I will have ever done. So I'm hopeful you'll watch the entire hour. It involves our Republican system of government. It involves our vote and the manipulation of the vote and the outcome for the next presidential election, the effect it had on the past congressional elections. So this is a very, very important program as far as I'm concerned, and it involves you, my friend. You are the senior research psychologist at the American Institute for Behavioral Research and Technology, former editor-in-chief of Psychology Today, founder and director emeritus of the Cambridge Center for Behavioral Studies in Massachusetts. You received your PhD in psychology in 1981 from Harvard University. Just to get some of your bona fides.
If Google's search results, for any reason, are biased to favor one candidate or one party, for any reason, that will shift a lot of opinions about that candidate, and that will shift a lot of votes. And in fact, it can shift millions of votes. It doesn't matter whether an employee or an executive at Google did this deliberately. The algorithm alone, a computer program, could be doing this, and it will still affect the outcome of elections.
Well, are they trying to affect the outcome of elections?
I don't know for sure. Now, there have been a number of leaks recently from Google. There have even been some whistleblowers who are saying that Google has a very strong political bias internally, that they lean left, which I tend to do as well, that they are deliberate in wanting to affect.
Well, I'm interested in what you found. Are they biased or not? What happened, let's be very specific, what happened in 2016, the presidential election?
In 2016, I set up the first ever monitoring system that allowed me to look over the shoulders of a diverse group of American voters. There were 95 people in 24 states. I looked at politically oriented searches that these people were conducting on Google, Bing, and Yahoo. I was able to preserve more than 13,000 searches and 98,000 web pages, and I found very dramatic bias in Google search results, not Bing or Yahoo, just Google's, favoring Hillary Clinton, whom I supported strongly. But the point is, I reported what I found, and that level of bias was sufficient, I calculated, to have shifted over time somewhere between 2.6 and 10.4 million votes to Hillary without anyone knowing that this had occurred.
And so how does that get accomplished, these algorithms that are changed and adjusted and so forth, but to have that significant of an impact? Obviously, someone or something wants someone to win and someone to lose. For the person who goes on Google, how is that manifested?
Well, if you go onto Google and you type in anything that's election related, and that could be hundreds of things, you type in immigration, or you type in the wall, or you think of all the things that are related to elections. The point is, you end up with some search suggestions that are flashed at you as you're typing. We now know that those search suggestions have a very, very powerful effect on people, and that they alone can shift opinions and votes dramatically. And then search results appear below, and the point is, if there's a bias in them, which means if a search result that's high up on the list, if that takes you to a web page that makes one candidate look better than another, well, if you're undecided and you're trying to make up your mind, what we've learned is that information posted high in Google search results will shift opinions among undecided people dramatically, because people trust Google, and they especially trust high-ranking search results. That's why 50% of all clicks go to the top 2 items.
Is that what Google did?
Well, again, I can't say what Google did, but I can tell you what we found. We found a very dramatic pro-Hillary Clinton bias on Google, but not the other search engines, and in all 10 search positions on the first page of search results. That's quite dramatic.
So it's on Google. People go on Google. It's front-loaded, pro-Hillary, anti-Trump. Well, then who does it if Google doesn't do it? It just happens?
Well,
somebody has to put information in for information to be prioritized.
What Google tends to say in these kinds of situations is it's an organic phenomenon. You know, organic, like organic food, like organic is good. So it's organic, meaning it's all generated by users. It's entirely the fault of users, and the fact is...
Is it?
Well, the point is that's nonsense, because in the controlled experiments I run, I determine, you know, which candidate is favored in search results, or I can mix up the search results so they favor neither candidate. So Google actually has total control over what users see. So to blame this kind of bias on users, it just makes no sense.
Now, pedestrians like me, that's a result of these algorithms, these models that are set up. People set up algorithms, don't they? Algorithms don't set themselves up.
Well, people create the algorithms to begin with, for sure, and as one of the recent whistleblowers from Google has said, we make our algorithms do exactly what we want them to do. But the fact is, Google also acknowledges adjusting their algorithm at least 600 times a year. And we also now know for sure, because of leaks, that Google uses blacklists internally, and that they also do re-ranking, de-ranking, fringe ranking. They're constantly making manual adjustments to what we see. So they have control. Whether they deny this or not, they have complete control over what we see. And if there's bias favoring one candidate or one party or one dog food, the fact is they have control over that.
Has Google, in terms of the company, the executives, shown political bias in the past?
Well, it's a matter of record that their top executives and most of their employees have a very strong liberal bias. I sympathize with that. I don't like the fact that bias is getting expressed in a way that's really, in my opinion, interfering with the free and fair election. But typically 95% or more of donations from Google go to Democrats. The former head of Google, Eric Schmidt, offered in writing to run Hillary Clinton's tech campaign in 2016. Hillary Clinton's chief technology officer is a woman named Stephanie Hannon. Right before she came over to Hillary's team, she was an executive at Google. And Google and Alphabet, its parent company, they were Hillary Clinton's largest donors in 2016.
Let me just say here for the record, so the audience knows, if the CEO of Google wants to come on this program and sit in this chair and have a 40-minute discussion with me, you're more than welcome. I have no problem with equal time. In fact, I would encourage it. Let's continue here. 2018, the Democrats picked up a whole bunch of seats. Did you monitor that too?
We did some monitoring in 2018. This time we had more than 160 field agents. We deliberately focused, because it's a midterm election, on 3 staunchly Republican districts in Orange County, California, thinking perhaps maybe if there is something going on with search results, maybe we'd pick it up in those counties. In all 3 counties, the Democrat won, so they were flipped. And we measured substantial bias, liberal bias, in the Google search engine, but not Bing or Yahoo. That's very, very important, that we're finding it in one search engine, but not the others. And that level of bias easily, very easily, could account for the win margins that occurred in each of those districts. And even more problematic here, if that level of bias had been present in Google nationwide
For all the districts.
for all the races, that would have shifted to Democrats upwards of 78.2 million votes. Now, that's spread across many races. But the point is,
That's enormous.
well, there are two big problems here, though. Besides the fact that it's a lot of votes, this is occurring subliminally. It's occurring without people's knowledge. People can't see the bias in search results. I can't even see it.
Let's stop here.